Foods is new and exciting. It's about doing more with less and elevating all food to its highest and best use. However, there are many misconceptions about what is and isn't upcycled food. So, what is upcycled food technically? Let's check out some of the facts around this important and innovative movement. In 2020, a team of subject matter experts developed the first ever definition of upcycled food for use by consumers, industry, government, and academia. They ultimately defined it as upcycled foods use ingredients that otherwise would not have gone to human consumption, are procured and produced using verifiable supply chains, and have a positive impact on the environment. Upcycled foods can come from pretty much anywhere. From farm surplus, from ugly produce, from byproducts resulting from the manufacturing process, such as spent grain from the beer brewing process, seeds from avocados, cacao pulp from chocolate production, misshapen cuts of meat and fish from butchering, coffee cherries from harvesting coffee beans, and pulp from juicing fruits and vegetables. They do not come from here or here. Upcycled food products are nutritious, delicious, and have to meet all safety requirements, just like any old bag of chips or food product. Other than food and beverages, upcycled ingredients can be turned into cosmetics, personal care items, dietary supplements, household cleaning products, and even pet food, just to name a few. That's really awesome, right? With 30% of food going to waste, you can make an impact with the products you purchase. So the next time you're at the supermarket, look for the Upcycled certified mark and give something new a try. If you're hungry for more, check out upcycledfood.org.
All right, welcome everybody to the third biennial New York City Food Waste Fair. We have an excellent panel ready for you all in just a few, but I just wanted to pass along a few reminders. For one thing, don't forget to use the Q&A function. We'll all be keeping an eye on that throughout, and we'll start to take some question and answers at the end. So. Do you guys hear that? I'm so sorry.
No.
Okay.
Good.
So I think the YouTube video is proceeding. I'm so sorry about that. Okay, so I wanted to bring that up. I wanted to remind the participants to check foodwastefair.com for to check the schedule for future events. For the rest of this week, we've got a lot of interesting panels lined up, and that's all I have for you all. I'll throw it over to Julie, who will introduce the food waste toolkit.
Thanks, Sam. Thank you everyone for joining us. This is day one of the Food Waste Fair, and we're so excited to be here. This is, we all are here because we know that food waste is a very serious problem. I'm excited about this panel because I think it provides some levity to the situation and shows that solutions can actually be fun and tasty. So it's a very uplifting way to spend your Monday afternoon. On the topic of solutions to food waste, I'm excited to unveil for the first time to the public's eyes our brand new New York City Food Waste Toolkit, which is a comprehensive online directory of solutions providers to food waste that are available to residents and businesses in New York City. Some of them are available nationwide as well. And I'm going to give you a little demonstration of it so you can then after this panel play around with it, share it with your friends and family. But all of the brands that you'll see here today will be featured on that toolkit, so you'll have a place to go back and look everybody up. So bear with me while I share my screen. One moment. Can everybody see so far? Woohoo! Drum roll. So this is available at foodwastetoolkit.com. It will also be available on the Food Waste Fair website and the Sanitation Foundation website as well. So the gist of it is that basically you log on and where you enter, you can identify yourself as a resident or a business, and you can go through this as both, as some of us wear two hats. And so I'll just show you the residential stream so far, but in addition to there being a directory at the top where you can always go and search for specific vendors or organizations, this is really designed for someone who has no idea what to do about food waste, and we will guide you, hold your hand through each of the steps. So if you're a resident, you would log on and see that, you know, step one is really preventing food waste in the first place. So you'll see here a variety of education resources, consultants, classes you can take, etc. I won't go through the whole journey. I'll let you do that on your own, but just to show where you'll find some of the Upcycled Food Association brands would be in step 5. So after you've prevented your waste and donated food and composted, you get to be a conscientious consumer. And that's where you'll find all of the great brands here, the Upcycled Food Association overall, as well as some of the brands that you'll meet here today on this panel. So I hope you'll explore that after we're done and spread the word to your friends and family in New York and beyond. With that, I'm excited to introduce Turner, who will be our main MC for today. Turner is the CEO of the Upcycled Food Association, and he is also the co-founder and executive director of the Denver Food Rescue. Turner and I are also part of a super special club for waste geeks called the Waste 360 40 Under 40 Award. So young people that are very into solving problems of waste. So in a certain world, it's very special. But so with that, I will turn it over to Turner, who will introduce the rest of the panel. Thank you.
Yeah, for most of the world, Julie, it's just really dorky, but glad that there are some people out there who think it's cool. Thanks, Julie, and congrats on the toolkit. That's such a great tool. Nice job, Sanitation Foundation, for coming up with that. That's really neat. I'm gonna have to dig through that a little bit more. And yeah, and thanks for putting on the New York City Food Waste Fair. I'm excited to be here. My name's Turner Wyatt, and I'm the CEO of Upcycled Food Association. And I'm really excited about this panel, mainly because all of the panelists are just my friends. So it's a great conversation because it feels like just catching up with some of my friends, some of my colleagues, people who I get to work with. And I'm really excited I know about each of these businesses, and I'm really excited for everyone here. It's great to see so many participants on here today. I'm really excited for you to learn about each of these businesses and the cool products they have and the cool things they're doing to help prevent food waste. I'm just going to take a couple minutes to give some background and context on why this is even important. Obviously, you saw in the video, and you know because you're here, food waste is a big problem. One of the facts that we don't talk about a lot is that food waste, according to Project Drawdown, is actually the #1 solution to global warming. So aside from electric cars and solar panels and all of the other solutions and plant-based eating, all of the other things that we do in our daily lives to make an impact on the environment and prevent climate change, this is the #1 most important thing that we can be doing, which is empowering, right? Because you can prevent, as you will learn on the Sanitation Foundation Food Waste Toolkit website, there's a ton of stuff that you can do to be preventing food waste. And as we'll learn on this panel, one of the ways that you can have an impact on preventing food waste every time you shop for food or other products for that matter is by purchasing upcycled food products, purchasing upcycled products generally. And so we're going to hear about some awesome upcycled products today. And these entrepreneurs are really, really interesting because they've identified a way to solve yet another problem that we haven't discussed, which is that in addition to the 30% of food that goes to waste, it's about 1 billion tons every year. It's worth about $1 trillion. trillion with a T, as in Timothy. And that's a ton of money, which means it's a big incentive for food businesses to prevent that waste, right? That's important because money and financial incentive is a way to really make it solutions accelerate really quickly. And we have to work really quickly. In fact, the UN Sustainable Development Goal around food waste is that we need to have food waste over the next decade, less than a decade now, by 2030. So it's not just that we need solutions that can scale up really, really big and really, really quickly. And upcycling provides a really promising way to do that because it is a scalable, economically sustainable, consumer-driven solution to food waste, which is unique. It's actually the first consumer product industry based off of food waste. So a really exciting opportunity to empower millions of consumers to prevent food waste every time they shop, and empower food businesses to prevent food waste that is not otherwise really preventable. Because even if, you know, a grocery store makes sure that they donate all of the food on their produce section, or even if you as a consumer make sure nothing goes to waste out of your own kitchen, that's not doing anything to prevent the waste from, you know, a juice manufacturer that is producing a whole bunch of nutritious juice pulp, or the waste from some other food manufacturing, or the waste of all the water that comes about in the juice concentration process, right? So you're going to learn about these and other supply chains starting right now. So let's do our first round robin with our panel. And I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves. These are all entrepreneurs who have created upcycled food businesses. And we're going to go around in a circle. And I'm just going to pick on a first person and then ask each panelist to pick the next person. And the first question is just to give an introduction to yourself and your business, basic company profile, and tell us about the upcycled supply chain. Okay, so tell us what was being wasted before that you're preventing from going to waste now via creating your product or ingredient. So let's start with Chris Oates from WAJU.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I am, and thank you, Turner, for hosting this panel. I'm just thrilled to be a part of the panel, and a lot of companies here I know and follow. So, you know, really good audience here and really good panelists that you get to hear from. So my name is Chris Oates. I'm the founder of WAJU Water, based out of White Plains. So we offer a new line of sparkling waters made by sustainably sourcing the naturally occurring water and real fruit. So fruit is about 90% water. A lot of people know that, but you know, you might not realize it until you hear that stat. So fruit is about 90% water. 80% of juice drinks are made using juice concentrate, right? So it's not just those 12-ounce, Minute Maid cans you used to get as a kid and add water in to make juice. 80% of juice drinks are made from concentrate. So what we are doing is we are partnering with juice concentrate manufacturers. So as they, once they get the fruit, they harvest the fruit, they get the pulp out of there, and now it's just juice. A lot of times what they do is they dehydrate the water out of the fruit, and then they discard that water, and then they keep that syrupy juice concentrate to then go on to be reconstituted into juice drinks. So we're partnering with these juice concentrate manufacturers to say like, hey, I know you're discarding this massive amount of water, every day to create juice concentrate. We want that water. It still has nutrients in it. It does a detriment to the environment to be wasted and discarded. So we want to partner with you to save and upcycle that, and then transform that into a delicious, great tasting, sparkling beverage. So that's kind of the supply chain and the genesis of how this came to be. But yeah, thanks for the opportunity to be here. Happy to talk more.
And you'll hopefully get a chance to do this through a couple times throughout the panel, Chris. But do you have a can or two that you can just show off so we can see the brand?
I always have it. So here's just we just rebranded. So here's kind of a sneak peek. I'm trying to get it in the camera here. A sneak peek of the new branding here. So very, you know, kind of whimsical, fun, and very colorful.
I love it. And amazing. When we first met like a year ago, Chris, it was one of those times of like, of course, that's a thing. But yeah. You would never think unless it was so. I know that you and we'll learn more about you personally. I hope as well, as someone who's been in the beverage industry for a long time, it would really take someone like you to you know, figure out, oh, this is a source of waste that we can help reduce with this product.
Yeah, and just one more quick point is, you know, when I spoke to these juice manufacturers, you know, when I said like, what do you do? You know, what do you do with this extra water? I know you have a lot of extra water that you normally discard from juice concentration. Like, what do you do with it? Have you ever thought about doing something with it? And all of them said the same thing. They said, you know, we've always thought about doing something with it, but we've never made it a priority. We've never figured out what to do with it. So now we're also giving them an extra income stream because it's something they didn't have as a product, and now they do have it as a product that they can now sell and make money off of instead of actually paying to dispose of the water.
Right. Yeah. So you're, by empowering consumers to be a part of that solution by purchasing WAJU. WAJU is incentivizing these juice manufacturers to be a part of the solution themselves, something they, you know, wouldn't otherwise be able to do without you. So that's awesome. Okay, I'm going to pick on the next person. Same thing to you, Beth. So quick intro of yourself and your company, and then give us an idea of the supply chain of your upcycled product.
All right, great. Thank you, Turner. So good to see everybody and excited to be here and talk about all of these cool upcycled food brands and products. So I'm Beth Kennedy. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Seconds, which is a new packaged food brand launched in October of last year. Normally, this is where I talk about food waste being a big problem, but given the audience and the topic of today, everyone here is already here realizes that. So I can kind of skip over that part and just talk about our mission, and what we're here to do is to reduce food waste by creating a portfolio of products that are delicious and healthy. And we do that by upcycling veggies, vegetable and fruit pulp. So our supply chain is in the same neighborhood, I would say, as Chris's. We work with cold press juice operators. So the ones that make the like the bottles of fresh pressed juice that you find at Sorella or those types of locations. And so we are collecting their leftover pulp. So they produce they cold press the juice, it goes into bottles, and then the pulp is set aside differently, and we collect it. And the way our process works is then we dehydrate it so that we can, and we produce it basically into a flour. It ends up being like a gluten-free flour, which we then use to make into crackers. So we, like I mentioned, we launched in last October. We launched at Pop-Up Grocer in Williamsburg in Brooklyn. I'm a New York City resident and business owner. So, and we're now in about 25 stores, mostly in Lower Manhattan. You can find us at Brooklyn Fair, A Matter of Health, the Good Smart, and this is our newest flavor. We launched iconic Everything Crunch flavor of carrot crackers last March. So happy to be here and looking forward to this discussion.
Oh, dying to try those. Everything flavored.
I'll send you
favorite. Yeah, and that's so interesting too. Like you said that it's, you know, I don't think everyone would know intuitively the connection to nutrition, but it's so true that, you know, the visions of upcycling and sustainability and preventing food waste and nutrition are aligned because, you know, in juice making, they're juicing out all of the starch and carbohydrates and sugars and that kind of stuff, and what's left in the pulp is a lot of the nutrients, right? And so
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Bring that
yeah.
to people in a new form.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great. Okay, same question to you, Fumi. Welcome, and give us an idea of you and your business and your upcycled supply chain.
Hi, I'm Fumi. I'm from Toronto/Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. We make instant miso soup made from sake kasu, which is a byproduct of sake brewing. So we partner with the local brewery. After they make sake, they take all the liquid part to sell. And there's a chunk of mushed rice, fermented rice as a byproduct. And we use that for making this instant miso soup. You don't need to cook it, you just put hot water and shake it in a container and it's ready to drink fermented soup. And also we just launching ramen noodles using okara, which is a byproduct of tofu making, which is coming soon. So I'm really excited about it too. And I'm happy to be here, thank you.
Yeah, Fumi, I think it's so interesting how in the brewing world, and beverage world and spirits and beer and there's so many byproducts that really are so nutritious, like that rice, or a good analog is a lot of the other members in Upcycled Food Association use the spent grain from brewing beer. So is that kind of the same thing as the rice that you're using?
Yeah, it's quite interesting to see the process from the nutrition viewpoint, because I think sake kasu is the most nutritious part of the whole process. The sake is just a water and some alcohol, right? It's of course super tasty, and they make great sake. But when we think about actual nutrition, it's kind of like we're thrown away the part that's most nutritious part. So I'm happy to see people doing the same thing in a different brewery.
Yeah, and can we see the packaging one more time? And do you sell in New York at all? Because I know that a lot of people
if there's any buyer in here, please contact us. We're trying to expand our reach in New York. We're just getting the distributor in that region. So we're happy to do that. Also, we can sell a dialect to you too.
Perfect. Yeah, hopefully, but at the last one, we'll have folks give what's your Instagram and your website and stuff, so people can order direct from you. Okay, last but certainly not least, Ricardo Diaz. Let's hear about yourself, your business, and the upcycled supply chain that you deal with.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm really excited to to join you, my UFA colleagues here, and try to share a little bit of our experience with upcycled ingredients and upcycled food. I'm a little bit one step upstream on the supply chain, as I'm actually working on upcycled ingredients, not with direct to consumer finished products. But I think that you guys all know that basically the possibilities that we are tapping into are endless. I mean, for many years, the food industry, has left behind a lot of the nutritious ingredients on those process, and then it's like suddenly, we're looking back there and seeing this upcycled food movement as a great opportunity to not only tap into the climate change issue, water. Agricultural activities account for about 60% of usage of potable water in the world. And then when you think that 30% of that is just wasted and composted or dumped into landfills, it's of course something that doesn't make sense, and we need to solve that problem quickly, super quickly. But then there's also this nutritional aspect of it, because somehow the traditional thing that happened in the food industry for the past 30, 40 years left a lot of the really good nutrients behind. And then we're kind of going back to that as well, and this is really nice. And in some sense that makes a lot of collective sense, and then I think that we're very excited to be part of that. So at Verum Ingredients, we do like research on functional ingredients from upcycled source. So we're looking at these side streams, things that are not being conventionally used in the food industry. And then we are trying on top of that to prove the nutritional benefit of those ingredients. So we are doing that with prebiotic fibers at first, from side streams from Brazilian crops. And then we are actually expanding our portfolio as we go along. But by meeting also other people, understanding other streams, we have been working with the coffee fruit as well, because coffee grains that are roasted, it's like the second largest commodity in the world, just behind oil. And then 50% of the fruit used to be actually wasted, and now people are like developing all sorts of use for those coffee fruits, and it's a flavorful thing, and a lot of people are having fun actually having coffee fruit beverages and teas, for instance. Yeah, so happy to be part, and I'll be joining later with a little bit more on the Q&A.
Yeah, and thanks for framing Verum ingredients as one step earlier in the supply chain, Ricardo. I think that's really interesting because people are pretty disconnected from their food. The average consumer, unfortunately, does not understand where their food comes from, who harvested it, who processed it, the way that their consumption impacts those people along the supply chain and also impacts the environment. And so as someone who deals directly with producers, farmers, coffee farmers, and your connections in Brazil, you're able to witness the impact that people's consumption in the United States, for example, in New York City, has on farmers in the global South, right? And so by commercializing otherwise wasted ingredients, like cascara from the coffee plant, what kind of impact does that have on your partners there and those producers?
Yeah, absolutely. It does have actually a huge social impact as well, because along with that, it comes extra revenues that people were not expecting to have, and it kind of it plays around very nicely. You bring new flavors, you're you're helping the environment, and on top of that, you're still generating additional income to some of these agricultural areas, producing areas that are they're in high need of added value there too.
Yeah, which is very significant, because it's unfortunately, and I've heard that out of all the value in our food supply chain, it's like big brands get, the lion's share of the money. Big, CPG brands get the lion's share of the money, whereas the millions and probably billions of people who work in agriculture, actually producing the food, get very small portion, relatively small portion of the actual value. So this is kind of helping to make the food system more equitable as well, by really giving credit where credit is due. Staying with you, Ricardo, as an ingredient supplier, it seems like you really are kind of opening the door for food businesses anywhere to be a part of this movement, because they don't even have to go through the laborious process of figuring out how, the food science and everything that goes into commercializing their own ingredient. If they want to be a part of this upcycled movement, they can literally just go to Verum Ingredients and figure out an ingredient that you have in your portfolio that can help make one of their products more sustainable. Is that right? So can you speak to what is the role of the ingredient supplier in this movement?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think some of the early stories, of course, they're beautiful, and they're related to founders' own connections with this surplus or with these side streams. And then when you think about the more general audience, and we are thinking, we like to believe that we are just at the beginning of this huge movement, and that this thing is going to be much bigger than it is today. So then, of course, I think that the upcycled ingredients will actually be a very convenient way for any food company to get involved, because they can always look at, whichever formulation they're working on from their new product launch, or if they're reformulating, they're just going to look at, do I have an upcycled solution for this particular ingredient that, I will use all that water and all that agriculture care that was put on that particular crop, and I'll get that already in my product instead of, triggering another supply chain effort. And I think that in that sense, I think that many of the upcycled ingredient suppliers, they will come, be very handy to support companies that want to tap into this product category, right?
Yeah, and I think more and more as consumer awareness and demand for upcycling increases, more food businesses, manufacturers are going to be looking for, okay, we got to, we want to be a part of this trend. We have to create an upcycled product. Where do we go? Where do we start? And they can, you're saying by including an upcycled ingredient, they can make their existing products even more sustainable.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. Well, that's kind of the future, right? We hope that one day every big food company has a whole line of upcycled products, but let's look back to the past. And Fumi, you and your story are a good example of how really upcycling, there's kind of this new movement, but it's been around forever. And a lot of people have probably been upcycling without knowing it, or consuming things that are upcycled without knowing it for a long, long time. And you were doing this before you even knew there was a word upcycling that was describing it and making you a part of this trend. So can you just tell us about that story, and what kind of how is it different now that there's this word and this association? How have things changed?
Thank you for asking. Yes, so we started making upcycled food, I think 2016 or 17, and I have no idea that was a thing. And we had the restaurant or cafe in Toronto. We were serving this soup, and I always had this waste at the end of the day, the soup like list in the bottom of the container. It's kind of burned, so it's not sellable. So when I learned about sake soup, which is quite useful and tasty and nutritious, we have a way to use it in Japan, but I learned it's not like that in here. So I thought, okay, let's make instant miso soup, the on demand. So I make the soup after customer order, and there's no waste. So that's how it started. And I started thinking, this is good for other cafes. They have maybe same problem, wasting food every day. So I made a 200 store list in Toronto and started knocking the door. And the result was awful, just awful. I couldn't sell anything. Basically the result was 0. And it was too weird, I think. It's like serving miso soup in a cafe was weird, and it's made from byproduct of sake brewing is too weird. So we needed to pivot our company to CPG in 2018. And then we actually started selling miso soup to the public because the package can be the way to tell the story. We can have a website, online e-commerce is a great way to introduce new things because you can use video, messaging, any kinds of tools now you have. But before that, there's I was weird person who's trying to save waste because I'm Japanese. We have a term of mottainai, which is what a waste. We raised not to food waste traditionally. And even though the industrialized Japan has a big food waste problem, but that's how we raised. And then I learned about this now, and I was like, whoa, this is a thing. I just wanted to save waste, but actually you can use this for marketing tool. And when I see a buyer, I can tell it's a thing. And Whole Foods revealed upcycle food as one of the top 10 food trend in 2021. I can say those things now. Wow. And certification is coming. Whoa. It's so different from several years ago. Thank you for doing that, Turner.
Well, it's really not me doing it or even Upcycled Food Association doing it. It's all of you. The powerful thing about this movement is that in addition to these 4 businesses, which are all members of Upcycled Food Association, there's about 170 other businesses from all around the world, about 20 countries, that all have their own really interesting, exciting products and ingredients. There's a lot of other ingredient suppliers as well, so Ricardo's not alone. And the certification, thanks for bringing that up, Fumi. The certification mark that you saw in the video at the very beginning, for those of you who are on there, that is a logo to help indicate to consumers and buyers all over the world to say, hey, this product is sustainable, it helps to prevent food waste, and to really coordinate all of the businesses to be saying the same thing so that you can reach a wider audience. Because we are just a small nonprofit, but when you put hundreds of businesses together all saying the same thing, that's really where you come up with some exciting messaging. So I'm Fumi, I'm super excited to see that logo on the instant miso soup packaging. And hopefully that'll even make your conversations even easier so you can get that into Whole Foods and more people can try it.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so let's see. Let's keep going on this train, talking about communicating to consumers. So Fumi was just saying it was like too weird, but now that it's a thing and people realize like, oh, this is something that I've been consuming already or doing for a while, and it's a new way for me to make my purchasing more sustainable, you know, we're kind of gaining momentum as a movement. So Chris, in your opinion, and in your practice, how do you communicate this good stuff to consumers without putting them off?
Yeah, it's such an important question, Turner. And in my mind, this is one of the most important questions around upcycling. You know, it's not inferior or lower quality, and in many cases, these ingredients have higher nutritional value, and sometimes even cost more. So, you know, I think there's education around that you know we're just seeing in the marketplace, which is good, right? You know, with all of our brands kind of communicating this now that, you know, Turner and Upcycled Food Association have created some standards around, you know, upcycled ingredients and upcycled food and like what that means, the definition of that. I think there is a lot of education, which is great. So now, you know, us and Fumi can now, you know, go to retailers and use upcycling as a marketing vehicle, whereas before they wouldn't have known what that term meant. So I think, you know, to me, I think one of the most important things to do is what Turner does a lot, and it's actually like communicate upcycling as a movement. And I think if you do that, it's less of like, you know, hey, you know, we have, you know, upcycling ingredients, and like it's less of like kind of a side, and it's more of like this is a movement that others can rally around, right? This is like, you know, the number one most important you know thing you can do to impact global warming, right? So there's, you know, some that it makes it very grand, right? And we're empowering, you know, our consumers, right? Or you know, they're more like participants now, right? They're not just the consumer who's consuming. Now it's like we're empowering them as a participant to make more conscious choices, and then, you know, in turn they're impacting the environment, right? So it's kind of less like, you know, it's less of a thing like, oh yeah, we're gonna you know buy our product and then we're gonna contribute money to this charity or something like that. It's like you consume our products and that is having a direct impact on the environment. And I think that's a really clear conscious connection. I think another thing, you know, and I think this is like based on your brand choice, but for me, I really find that it works better if, you know, communicated upcycling is done in kind of a fun way instead of, you know, not so preachy, and you know, reinforcing taste around that. So right, it's like upcycling is fun, you know, and communicating that in that way, in a way that like upcycling reinforces taste. Here's, you know, what it's doing for the environment, but like the copy, like how you write that needs to be like very fun and uplifting. And I think that's how, you know, that brings in consumers and it tells a story as opposed to like talking to them, you know, and telling them what to do. It's like, it's kind of like bringing them in with a story and something that's fun and approachable, I think makes a big difference. And then the last thing I would say is, I think people still struggle between, what's the difference between upcycling and recycling. So some more kind of tactical things also help just to, show the difference between the two and how much more, I think that's just more of like kind of an educational thing. But as they learn more about that impact that upcycling has, and what that means, like what different types of ways that you can upcycle, right? Like, I have a water that's being upcycled, Beth has pulp that's being upcycled and then turned into a product. There's lots of ways to do it. So I think as they start to be educated and see the impact across multiple types of ingredients, it's just gonna, be more clear in their mind, and then they're gonna be able to make those more conscious choices at shelf when they see our products.
Right, and hopefully that Upcycle certified mark is kind of a common thread where they see seconds chips, they see the instant miso, they see the fruit water, or any of the products that are used ingredients made by Verum ingredients, and it's like you see a common thread of like, oh, anything that has this mark on it, I'm helping to make a direct impact on food waste. Because we know that for every certification that, certification is pretty hard to get. Like in order to get the certification, you have to prove to the third party certifying body, not us, that you're actually preventing a certain number of pounds of food waste, right? So there is, like you said, Chris, it's really more of a direct connection than something that's sort of indirect out there.
Yeah. And I would say too, like, I think a lot of consumers are very skeptical, when it comes to sustainability and like, what does that mean? Is it actually sustainable? So there's this whole greenwashing that I think, each of our brands is really trying to counteract. So having that certification, that seal, that credibility to say that the brands that have this seal have gone through this certification process and actually, are making a meaningful impact to our environment. That is really going to help overcome some of those skepticism concerns.
Yeah, absolutely. And it should be a concern. And we actually have some really great questions that we're going to get to in just a second that I think are excellent, fair criticisms of what are the other ways that we can go even further to make an even bigger impact. So we'll get those in just a second. But first, Beth, I want to go to you because this is the New York City Food Waste Fair. And there's actually a few of you based in New York, but you've been, we've known each other for a while, and I've been sort of watching as you create this great company and this great brand. And talk about what that has been like, in particular, starting this upcycled food company in New York.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So a few sort of like, and reflecting on this or thinking about it, a few sort of categories in starting this upcycled food business in New York that make it so great to be starting a business in New York. One is just the startup and the entrepreneurial community here in New York City. So in working on developing and launching this brand over the past couple of years, the people that I've been connected to, introduced to, other founders, has just been so wonderful and so supportive and helpful, and great introductions to all of the partners that and suppliers and people that you need to work with in launching a company. So just being here in New York and having access to all of that has been a huge benefit. Another one, this has definitely still a huge benefit and opportunity, but was a challenge during COVID. But one great thing about New York is the independent retail and just the variety and of types of retailers that you can find here in New York City that aren't large chains. So it's a great way to connect, with store owners, managers, and be able to get your product into the store and on shelf pretty quickly, more faster than you could with a large retail chain. So that's a great way to I've been able to get seconds on, on shelf in multiple different neighborhoods, different types of retailers, and really be able to have that conversation and dialogue with retailers and get that feedback. So that's been really a great benefit as well. And then, just the density and the huge consumer base that's here. And I do think that, a lot of people here in New York are, they care about sustainability. They're open to learning about it. And so the audience, it's a good audience to really start with and learn from, and then be able to expand from there.
Yeah, we have one of our other members, a group, Matson, product developer in California, did a study recently where they found it's like 99% of consumers know that food waste is a problem, and 95% of consumers want to do something about it in their own lives, which is just this amazing, super rare ubiquity and agreement that we find in such a polarized world. And so what you're saying is that none of those 5% of people who don't want to do anything about it live in New York. So you have a big market of people who actually care and want to contribute to the solution there, right?
Right. Yeah. And also, I just wanted to add another point about, we're talking about the the economic and the environmental benefits of upcycling, and the other one we talked about a bit at the beginning is the nutrition. So looking at our pulp that we're upcycling, it really has 3 times as much fiber and protein, and some of the other vitamins that come from carrot juice, in the dried carrot pulp. So that makes its way into the crackers, and our crackers end up having 5 grams of fiber and 4 grams of protein per serving, which makes the crackers have great nutrient density compared to what else is on the market. And so then there's also a benefit, a nutritional benefit that consumers care about, in addition to the environmental impact that you're able to make by picking up some of these upcycled products. They can be really healthy and good for you as well.
So let's recap on the wins then. Ricardo told us that it's a win for producers, right? Because it's increased revenue. Everyone kind of talked about how it's a win environmentally because it helps to prevent food waste, #1 solution to climate change. It also helps to unlock nutrients that are otherwise unavailable to consumers, more nutritious. And Chris, you mentioned how it's also a win to food businesses because they were paying someone to haul off this waste product before, and now they're earning revenue off of it. And so that's like a win-win-win-win-win or something like that. So way to go. You all are really creating some amazing wins out there. Okay, I want to get to some of these questions from the audience because I love these questions. And this is just going to be for whoever. Okay, so Fumi and Ricardo, we haven't heard from you all in a while. Feel free to jump in, but anyone who feels passionate about these answers, we want to hear from you. So one of the participants asks, will these products be competitive at price point, or is this just another niche, super pricey product that we're going to see and isn't necessarily accessible to the average consumer? Who has thoughts on that?
Oh, I can say that basically, I mean, it will be a case by case situation. You cannot generalize, but from the fact that you're getting products out of side streams, they have to be price competitive, right? So generally speaking, unless there's something that it's really special, very different, or in a scale that even though it's upcycled, but the scale is not big, then this could maybe be a problem. But in general, I think that by nature, they have to be price competitive. So I don't think that this is like kind of a new organic plus type of product qualification that will make them unaffordable.
Yeah, I agree because it depends. And also in this size, small business, I think it's more up to the size of the company. If we can scale, we can make it cheaper. It's not like not only about upcycle food. But sometimes I get a question, is it cheaper or are you getting it for free? In my case, I'm not getting it free. I'm buying it. Also, I need to process it. So it's end up like a regular food price. That's what happens. And I just want to say something about Susan's question. Is it profitable or economy part? In terms of that, I think our companies finally get last year, profitable. And the other thing we can see is for example, we're trying to save Okara this year with ramen products. And when we think about it, the soybean consumption, it's quite interesting because of the alternative meat, the percentage of the market is just 2%. And there's a statistic say it can get to 10% in really short time. When that happens, soybean consumption gets super high. For example, there's a McKinsey's data. They were saying, for example, the country like Brazil, one of the largest soybean maker, they need to make like 65% more soybean. When not only upcycling world, in general, the plant-based ingredients is needed more. That's the trend. So trying to use the food waste for plant-based is really actually makes sense in many ways economically. I think that's one thing that we can say about it now.
Yeah, and I'll jump in here and say, I don't think there's an issue with having a slightly more premium priced product at the beginning, because a lot of these upcycling ingredients, they do tend to be a little bit more expensive, and that conscious consumer, I think, is aware of this, and they care about how ingredients are sourced, and so if it is priced at a premium, I think for one, it kind of there is an indication that this is slightly different maybe than the other products in that category that you're with. But I also think that those conscious consumers realize the value in that and are willing to pay more. But I do think over the long run, to appeal to more of a mass consumer, that we have to get the price down. And I think the price will come down as the costs go down with scale. But at the beginning, it's really difficult because these upcycled ingredients, they're not, produced at scale. So, they do tend to be a little bit expensive. And the products that, a lot of times you're buying in the category that are super cheap, often they're corners that are cut, to get down to that price point. And I don't think the environment is the number one concern there. So, I think there is kind of a trade-off there with, that consumer who's purchasing sustainably sourced products that gets it and is willing to pay that price point. But in the long run, if you want to get that scale and be able to appeal to a greater audience and be more accessible to a greater audience, I think it's imperative we get the price down.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, y'all, for those questions. And just a related question from an attendee: Will these products be sold in bodegas or other places where low-income people shop? Will SNAP benefits, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also previously known as food stamps, be accepted? That's actually a retailer question. If it's up to the individual retailer whether SNAP benefits are accepted. And personally, I was driving through rural Colorado recently, and I found at a bodega one of our members' products in a very rural area, farming community. And so I took that as a sign. Okay, if it can get here, it can get anywhere. And I think that's a great goal for our industry and our movement to work towards making these products more accessible to people of all incomes, knowing that people of all incomes do want to align their purchasing with their values. So another one that I'm really interested in hearing from you all, one attendee asked, thanks for making incredible products. Would love to hear your view on packaging and how you plan to, this person says, package in 100% recyclable materials and move away from single-use plastic. But I think you can take that question sort of as like, what's your stance on sustainable packaging generally? And here's the thing, we only have a few minutes left, so try to keep your answers pretty brief. And also, over the next 5 minutes, to each of our panelists, please paste your website or your social media handle or whatever you want into the chat. Make sure it says send chat to panelists and attendees, and so people can find your businesses after today. So again, sustainable packaging. What are we doing about that?
I can talk to that. So sustainable packaging is important to Seconds and to the brand. And so we want to incorporate that as much as possible. So for now we have, we're packaged in a paper, carton board paper box, which is made with, it's 100% made with recycled material. And the inner pouch is a foil package. And I'd love to at some point in the future be able to use compostable packaging, but for now I'm really focused on making sure that we have a package that protects the crackers for as long as possible, and because doesn't that maintains the shelf life. So for now we're with foil-based packaging, the inner box, and looking to hopefully move to compostable when we, again, also in line with what some of the other panelists were talking about in terms of scale. And at this stage, with quantities being, on the low side, once we get to a larger scale, we'll be able to pursue some of those alternatives. But it's definitely a focus and has to be part of the brand if our brand mission is all around sustainability. But that's how we're doing it. But thinking about throughout the chain and all of the outer packaging is definitely conscious decision. And for now, I don't have any single serve packages. And if we do go that direction, I'd probably try to at least have a couple of servings to try to minimize that.
Anyone else have thoughts on that? And thanks, Ricardo and Fumi, for putting your website and Instagram stuff in there. Chris and Beth, post your stuff in there too so people can follow up. There's a lot of questions on here that we're not going to get to. So follow these links that people are posting into the chat, and you can follow up with them on your questions here. I encourage you to do that. So anyone else have thoughts on sustainable packaging briefly?
We are doing a lot of experiment about it. Like basically we fail a lot because it's wet and there's an enzyme alive. So if it's a dry product, it's not that hard to find that packaging. But it's all ongoing thing. We are doing several shelf life tests with the different materials, and I'm happy to share that when it's ready.
I'll just jump in here, give you another perspective, because we're looking at this in a very holistic way. So one of the ingredients that we are researching right now, we are actually taking one of the byproducts into a compostable packaging. So we are doing upcycled packaging as well.
Hopefully one day the food waste that you all are not reducing will be able to be turned into some sort of packaging solution, so that we really are moving towards a more circular food economy, right? Our food system is such a massive and impactful system, and it's one that we all participate in. And so this is a way for you as a consumer to align your values with your purchases and participate in this solution, the best solution to climate change every time you shop. And so thank you, Chris, Fumi, Ricardo, Beth, for giving us the opportunity to do that and creating some really cool products and ingredients that help the people that are growing the food, that help the environment, that help food businesses, that help us. So thank you so much to our great panel. Thanks to Sanitation Foundation for putting on this panel and for putting on the New York City Food Waste Fair. We're right at time. So I don't know if Sam, if you're going to jump back in and transition us, but thank you all so much. Please
Thanks,
follow
everybody.
up with myself and other attendees.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.